When I changed my mind and decided to stay in New York, my wife was understandably furious. Then I accused her of being the one who had wanted to move us to Austin. There followed a crisis. She really thought she might have to leave me because life together was just getting intolerable. But we are a deep marriage, and her despairing threat to separate made me quell my extreme behavior. It was not until Christmas that I really began to feel better. Now I took stock of all I had found out. Judging from what the other witnesses reported, something had happened. But what? I had no idea what had gone on that night. There did seem to be a lot of confusion, though, and perhaps even an emotional response on my part greatly out of proportion to what seemed a minor disturbance. My next step was clear. I was going to become involved with a therapist. The ideal therapist would have an open mind. I could have a mental problem. It might or might not have components unknown to science. Because of the evident presence of fear-induced memory lapses and even possible amnesia, this therapist would have to be a skilled hypnotist as well. Hopkins remembered that Dr. Donald Klein of the New York State Psychiatric Institute had expressed interest in the phenomenon and appeared to be open-minded about it. I looked up Dr. Klein's credentials and found them to be superb. A few weeks later, I was in his office undergoing a searching 3-hour pre-interview. We worked for some time trying to find ways into my mind, but I could recall little more than I already had. At his suggestion, I spent a week trying to do so. When I was not successful, we decided on a trial hypnosis session. I was very much hoping that the process would dispel the whole notion of the visitors and prove that, despite appearances, the experience had been a complicated series of misperceptions. We just don't know enough about hypnosis to call it a completely trustworthy scientific tool in a situation like this. While Don Klein certainly didn't ask provocative questions, there was always the possibility that I was unconsciously eager to comply with an outcome that I might secretly have longed for. I did not believe in UFOs at all before this happened, and I would have laughed in the face of anybody who claimed contact. And yet my experience happened to me, and much of it is recorded not in an unconscious context, but in ordinary memory. Donald Klein met me in his subdued gray office on East 79th Street in Manhattan. He is a tall man with curly hair and a quiet demeanor. Two things were immediately apparent to me about him as a hypnotist. First, I sensed command. He was confident of his skills. Second, he was a thorough, careful man with a very acute mind. I had never been hypnotized before, and I was apprehensive about it. As it turned out, my apprehension was for the wrong reasons. I was afraid of relinquishing control over myself, which seemed deeply disturbing. Control, as may be imagined, was a central issue in a life such as the one I had been leading. I found, though, that I trusted Don Klein when he told me that even under hypnosis, people cannot be readily compelled to say things they do not want to say. I would not be out of control, not really. The process of becoming hypnotized was pleasant. I sat in a comfortable chair. Dr. Klein stood before me and asked me to look up at his finger, which was placed so that I had almost to roll my eyes into my head to see it. He moved it from side to side and suggested that I relax. No more than half a minute later, it seemed, I was unable to hold my eyes open. Then he began saying that my eyelids were getting heavy. And they did indeed get heavy. The next thing I knew, my eyes were closed. At that point, I felt relaxed and calm, but not asleep. I was aware of my surroundings. I could feel my face growing slack, and soon Dr. Klein began to say that my right hand was getting warm. It got warm, and then he progressed to my arm, and then my whole body. I was now sitting totally comfortable, encased in warmth. I still felt as if I had a will of my own, a sensation that was never to leave me. In fact, The hypnotized subject does have a will of his own, very much so, but he is also open to suggestion. After some preliminary questions, Dr. Klein proceeded to the afternoon of October the 4th. I wish to add that Bud Hopkins was present at both of these sessions, recording them. He was allowed to ask questions, but only at the end of each session, and it was understood that his questions would be few. All the other questions were put by Dr. Klein. Now, we are going to the beginning of the month of October, right around October the 1st, 1985. You have any plans for the weekend? Dr. Klein asked. Yes, we're going to take Jacques and Annie up to the country, and I don't know whether or not Jacques is going to fit in the Jeep. Now, you're driving up to the country? Yeah. We're not having any problems. Annie's very small, so Jacques can fit. I put on a tape, but nobody liked it, so we talked. I'm going to take you all out to dinner tonight. We're going to the top of the falls. Go forward to that time now. How are you feeling? Oh, I'm enjoying myself thoroughly. How far is the restaurant from your house? Oh, not long, about 15 minutes. And we had dinner. Anne, our son, all have, I have a great time. Jacques has a good time. So you're back in the house and you're going to bed for the night? Yeah. What happens after you go to bed? Well, I woke up in the middle of the night. Oh, something went past the window. What the hell? Something went past the window. Something went past the window. There's nothing but... oh, God. Annie, the house. Something went past the window. Yeah, a big thing. No, it was a light. It didn't go past the window. I'm going back to sleep. I think the stove's okay. It was a light in the front yard. I keep thinking, who the hell is that? Is that somebody? Is there somebody there? Relax. Now tell us what you saw. I saw something that looked like it had a hood on it standing over by the wall near the corner in our bedroom, and I don't want it to be there. What's it doing to me? Stop! Oh, no, stop! I then emerged spontaneously from hypnosis. Oh, God, I said. You know, I didn't know there was anything in my house till just this second, that night on the 4th of October. Scared the devil out of me. Sorry about that. I didn't expect this to be that bad because I was prepared for being scared on the 26th. I did not know anything had come into my house. Oh, well. It was there. Can you tell us about it? It's like a little man with a hood on or something. There's no head. He's covered in something and comes over to the bed and he starts like sticking something in. Oh, no, not into my head, you understand, but like it's sticking into my mind. It would make a noise like a voice, like it had a little thing it could touch to my head and it would make a voice. I swear to God, I just can't believe this happened. I'll tell you, the light comes down past the window. Then I see a glow in the front yard. I thought I'd gotten up, but I don't think now that I did. I think I knew all along it was coming in the window, the glow, and I just didn't somehow want to say that, because it was very obvious even then that it wasn't a fire, and he was... I just don't know what he was doing. It was very scary. I'm shaky, but do you want me to keep on? If you'd like to. Oh, I do, definitely. In a few more moments, I was hypnotized again. Dr. Klein was speaking. If you see something that is very frightening, you will remain asleep. But you will tell us how you feel. The night of October the 4th, you have woken up. Tell me what you see. When he sees I see him, He comes over to the bed. He looks mean. He's little, looking down at me. Got eyes, big slanted eyes. A bald head. He's looking down at me. He's got a ruler in his hand. Has a tip of silver. Touches me. I see pictures. I see pictures of the world just blowing up when he touches my head with this thing. Jesus! What is this about? What is it about? Well, I know you won't hurt me. Stop. Oh, the house is burning down. The house is on fire. No, it's not. Why did I say that? Something woke you up. What happened? I then emerged spontaneously from hypnosis. Explosion, I said. I was expecting it. I knew just when it would come. He took a little thing like a needle and stuck it like a match in front of my face, and it made a big bang, pow! And I thought the house was on fire. This was the explosion that Anne and your son... I think it was the explosion that they all heard. He did it with a little needle stuck in the air, you know. I feel a tremendous relief right now. This is good to be able to remember. It's not an easy memory, but it's good to remember because I've been fighting to keep it out of my head. You said that the first figure seemed to be covered up like with a hood. You said it had a bald head. Well, you see, I can sort of see that it had a bald, rather largish head for someone that size, and that its eyes are slanted more than an Oriental's eyes, but they're quite... There's a piercing glare, almost. I'm not sure, but at some point I almost thought it looks like a bug. But not, well, you know, more like a person than a bug. But there were bug-like qualities to it. You know what I've got to do? I've got to figure out how I feel about this, because I don't think I'm intellectually going to be able to deny their existence much longer. The session ended with a decision to continue later in the week. The easy route would be to dismiss this material as entirely psychological. That would also be a mistake, at least until the physical effects are explained completely in detail and satisfactorily. A terrifying thing happened to me. Perhaps it involved visitors from somewhere, maybe even from inside the human unconscious. For me, though, the most important thing about it was its essentially human effect. We met again a few days later. Bud Hopkins told me that the first hypnosis sessions were often traumatic. These memories are buried for a reason. They are frightful in the extreme. When they first emerge, the mind lives through the panic it has been avoiding. While my experience with the wand is almost unique, the being I saw wielding it is of a type commonly reported. It was during this week that I began to have a relationship with my own memories. There had been a being present. I had seen it, and I had seen others in December. I remembered the way they had smelled, the way it had felt to be carried by them, the way their place had looked inside. I felt complex emotions ranging from the deepest inner unrest to what I can only describe as an urgency to compliance. I wanted to come together with them on my terms to find some sort of mutuality. When I returned to Dr. Klein's office, I described myself as uneasy. We began the session covering December the 26th as soon as I was comfortable. Again, Bud Hopkins was present and allowed to question me. I want to take you back to December the 26th, Dr. Klein began, and you are having supper. You are going to talk to me now, but stay completely asleep. Where are you having supper? In the country, I responded. Tell me who's there. Anne and our son. How do you feel? I'm very happy. I'm feeling great. Had you been feeling great the previous few weeks? I had a hard time up until Christmas. Was scared, unhappy. I felt like the world was caving in on me. Kept thinking there were those people hiding in the closet. Went all through the house every night, checking. Did you have any idea why you were searching? Well, in case there might be somebody hiding in the house. Did your wife ask you why you were looking in the closet? No, she never saw. You hid that from her? Yeah, and from my boy. I've got a gun. When did you get that? October. We went to the gun store. What did you want it for? Protection. From what? Not sure. I just have the feeling sometimes there are people in the house. I'm going to take you forward in time to the evening of the 26th. You're going up to bed to go to sleep. You're going to remain calm and tell me what happens. We go to sleep in bed. Give and kiss. Can hear the snow on the house. A little bit of snow. Turn out the light. The whole place fills with quiet. Go to sleep. Definitely think I hear 'em. I hear them. Comes right in the door. Looks like he's wearing cards. God damn, I can really see this. He looks like he's wearing cards. An oblong one down his middle. And he has on a round hat. And he's wearing a face mask with 2 eye holes and a round hole between them down toward the bottom, and he's moving real fast. And he stands beside my bed and makes a gesture to the door. There's a hell of a lot of them, filing into the room. I'm talking about a lot of them. They're not wearing cards. They're wearing coveralls, blue. I can see their heads, which are bald. Time to get up. I get up. I'm scared, you see. I'm scared as hell. I take off my pajamas. Scariest to see Anne. I have to say goodbye to her now. There's 2 whole rows of 'em. I'm going out. They're moving me. Are they moving me from hand to hand? They're little bitty people. I was taken downstairs onto the front porch, where I saw a sort of black iron cot. I don't like the look of that thing. That's a cot, or like a bed, only it's for me. I feel sick inside, just sick. I don't know where they are now. I lie down on the cot. It just gets sort of jumbled. I remember I thought it was almost like getting into the electric chair. And it goes off the back of the porch. And I know this is a dream because I'm flying. I'm flying, so this must be a dream. I don't want to see the last of that house, though. I don't. Where is the snow? We're out in the woods. Where the hell? They're all around me, and I'm naked, and I'm not cold. And they have there's like a swarm of them. They're around me. I feel very numb and funny. The next thing I know, I'm sitting. I'm still in this thing, but I am sitting in the woods. These people are scaring me terribly because, whoop, right up, just shot right up. Yeah, that scared the dickens out of me. I saw the trees down there. Now they've got a floor under me again. You went up. I just shot right up out of the woods in this chair, this thing, more than 100 feet. It was like going up in an elevator. I really felt it. And now they've got a floor under me. I'm sitting on a bench in a little room, and it smells funny. It's not clean in here. There is somebody talking to me. Now she walks right past in front, and she's wearing a tan suit. She looks like a little person made out of leather, sort of. You know what? I think you are old. Are you old? She says, yes, I'm old. She's looking at me. She's got a matchbox. No, it's not a matchbox. In this exchange, she told me that an operation would be performed. What do you mean, an operation? I'm getting real scared again, real scared, because I cannot do a thing about this. I'm not going to let you do an operation on me. You have absolutely no right. We do have a right. That was it. Bang! There was nothing to it. I thought they were going to cut my whole head open. There was nothing to it. Dr. Klein asked, what happened? Just a bang back behind my head, that's all, I said. She's sitting right in front of me the whole time, just looking at me. They're moving around back there. They keep trying to put something in my mouth. They're real. They're real. Put up her cheek right to me, and they're real. What the hell did she say to me? You are the chosen one. I don't believe that for a minute. It's ridiculous. I want to go home. That is where I belong. You just cut me on my finger, just like that. It comes up, pow, bang, dung. Doesn't hurt at all. I'm not scared the floor goes away like that. I'm rolling like a ball. Feels like I'm going backwards in a movie almost. I went sailing right back into my living room in no more than a minute. I sit on the couch. I think I'm going to build up the fire, except I haven't got any clothes on. Oh, so cold, so tired. I go upstairs. There's two people standing up there now, and it scares me because I don't think they were there. I go in the bathroom, brush my teeth. I can't get that face out of my head. I'm sure glad to be home. Now I just have to go to bed. I see my dark pajamas, blue pajamas, put on my pajamas, get right into bed. I touch Anne, and she's warm. One thing you mentioned was this message that you were the chosen one, Dr. Klein said. Did they say chosen for what? No, not for anything. They've got a lot of them, believe me. I've seen some of the others before, all lying down there. What others? The other people. There's a whole row of them. Oh, but that was a long time ago. They didn't know where they were or what they were doing. I was sitting up in bed. How old were you? 12? Where were you? I was sitting up in bed, and everybody else was asleep. Oh, there's a whole bunch of beds. I'm sitting on a chair. Just this gray thing in front of me. What is that? It's got red spots on it. I'm tired. I feel sick. Do you want to go home? I don't care if you never take me back home again. You have to go home. Who are all those people? Oh, they're all soldiers. What do you do to them? Oh, we look over them and send them home. Why do you look so awful? I can't help that. When did you find my sister? She's just down the hall. I then saw my father. He was standing up, apparently quite conscious. Daddy, don't be so scared, Daddy. Come on, Daddy. Daddy, it's all right. He says, Whitty, it's not all right. It's not all right. Oh, God, what is it? He asks. I don't know what it is either, Daddy. How'd you get up here, Daddy? I emerged spontaneously from hypnosis. We were on a train. Were we on a train? I was scared to death. Something had happened to my father. You talked about your sister, Bud Hopkins said. Yeah, my sister was there with us. How did I end up back in... I'm a little confused. I remember saying I'm 12 at some point, and then I remember seeing that thing again, the same thing I saw when... What was the thing? Bud asked. The thing is Well, I keep saying it's a woman, but it's a thing. But I saw her on the train. What in the world is all this about? Because I seem to remember seeing her on a train, but it's not a train. Your father was there? Yeah, he was there. He was scared to death. And when he got scared, I got scared. And there were a whole bunch of soldiers there, too. Regular soldiers. And they had uniforms. They were all lying on tables. No, they were beds, but they were solid, no legs. You were allowed to sit up? I was sitting up, very excited. Then the next thing I knew, I saw my father, and I was terrified because he was so scared. I'm talking about memories that didn't happen on a train, obviously, am I not? Did I say it happened? I'm very confused here. I don't know what the hell's going on. What made you say train? I don't know. No, we were on a train. We were on a train, and I'll tell you the goddamnedest thing happened when we were on the train. We ended up in this thing when we were on a train. I'll tell you what we were doing, too. We were coming back from Madison, Wisconsin on a train in the year 1957, and that's when it all happened. All of a sudden, I'm not on a train. I'm sitting up in bed, and all these soldiers. It wasn't an unpleasant place to be. I don't remember moving. That's the thing that's funny about it. I remember being in one place and then in another place. That's the damnedest thing. And when I saw my father, he was standing up and he looked totally bereft and terrified. I could hear him very faintly, just screaming and screaming. The second I heard it put just terrifying fear into me. I remembered that right sitting here, the way that felt. Well, it just went right through me. When Daddy was scared, I was just scared to death. You said you took a trip. Yeah, the trip happened. And not only did the trip happen, something did happen on the trip, because on that trip on the way back, I was sick as a dog, and my father was just having a hell of a time with me because I was so sick. There was something you were describing as if you'd seen it before. You know what I saw before? The woman. Yeah, the same person. That occurs in hypnosis, Dr. Klein explained. We have these spontaneous age shifts. Frequently, what will happen is that somebody will, under hypnosis, see something they've seen before or something like it, and the age shift will occur. What about this thing about the woman? Bud Hopkins asked. This is just so strange. We're going to have to talk about this another time because I just need to rest. When I left that last session, it was with a deep sense of concern. I felt that I was entering an unknown region of the mind, perhaps of experience. I was doubly worried now for my sanity. First, I still felt that I might be the victim of some rare disorder. Second, I questioned my ability to live with the notion that my whole life might have proceeded according to a hidden agenda. Neither of these alternatives was acceptable, hardly endurable, and yet one of them had to be true. I was a responsible husband and father. There wasn't any sign of psychosis in my personality. Don Klein was an acknowledged expert, and even after this hypnosis session, he told me he thought I was sane. But how could anyone not be psychotic and yet have these spectacular delusions? How could it be that this went back into my childhood? And if that wasn't true, and my mind had chosen to do this to itself, then what was it doing, and why? I wrestled with the notion that something might have been happening in my life, real encounters that were having a tremendous, hitherto unconscious effect on me. Certainly I had acted as if this were true before any conscious memories had emerged. The conscious memories didn't really come before the first week in January 1986, yet as early as the summer of 1985 I had become nervous about people in the house, even to the point of buying expensive burglar alarms and, in October, a shotgun. That night I wished to God that I could somehow shed myself and step out fresh in the world. The visitors persisted in my mind like glowing coals. I could see those limitless, eternal eyes glaring right into the center of me. I shut myself in my office and sat cross-legged on the floor, trying to collect myself. As soon as I relaxed, it was as if I had opened a hatch into another world. They swarmed at me, climbing out of my unconscious, grasping at me. This was not memory. It only worked through the medium of memory. It was meeting me on every level, caressing me as well as capturing me. This emergence was like a kind of internal birth, but what was being born was no bubbling infant. What came out into my conscious mind was a living, aware force. And I had a relationship with it, not a fluttering new one, but something rich and mature that ranged across the whole scale of emotions and included all of my time. I had to face it, whatever this was, it had been involved with me for years. I really squirmed. What might be hidden in the dark part of my mind? I thought then that I was dancing on the thinnest edge of my soul. To gain some semblance of control over myself, I decided to make an inventory of possibilities. I sat down at my desk and began to write. Even if the visitors were real, there was no reason to believe that they were simply creatures from another planet. I speculated. It could be that the visitors were really from here. Certainly the long tradition of fairy lore suggested that something had been with us for far more than the 40 or 50 years since the phenomenon took on its present appearance. Another thought was that the visitors might really be our own dead. Maybe we were a larval form, and the adults of our species were as incomprehensible to us, as totally unimaginable as the butterfly must be to the caterpillar. Perhaps the dead had been having their own technological revolution and were learning to break through the limits of their bourne. Or perhaps something very real had emerged from our own unconscious mind, taking actual physical form and coming forth to haunt us. Maybe belief creates its own reality. It could be that the gods of the past were strong because the belief of their followers actually did give them life, and maybe that was happening again. We were creating drab, post-industrial gods in the place of the glorious beings of the past. Instead of Apollo riding his fiery chariot across the sky, or the goddess of night spreading her cloak of stars, we had created little steel-gray gods with the souls of pirates and craft no more beautiful inside than the bilges of battleships. Or maybe we were receiving a visit from another dimension, or even from another time. Maybe what we were seeing were human time travelers who assumed the disguise of extraterrestrial visitors in order to avoid creating some sort of catastrophic temporal paradox by revealing their presence to their own ancestors. I wondered about my description of them as insect-like. Their appearance was actually more humanoid. There were no feelers, no wings, no tangle of legs. It was the way they moved, so stiffly, that suggested the insect world to me. That, and their enormous black eyes. If, say, some species of hive insect had become intelligent on some other planet, or even here, it might be very much older than us, and its mind very much more primitive in structure. They might have, in essence, a single, enormous mind. Such a mind might think very well indeed, but slowly. I had been assuming that any visitors would be vastly more intelligent than us. In terms of earthly evolution, man emerged only very recently. Maybe that also means that man is not the lesser creature, but the more advanced one. If this was so, then older, less quick-thinking and flexible forms might view us as quite a danger to them. And yet I did not have the feeling that they were hostile so much as stern. They were also, at least somewhat, frightened of me. In some sense, their emergence into human consciousness seemed to me to represent life, or the universe itself, engaged in some deep act of creation. It was pushing toward 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was finally so exhausted that I could not stay awake. I went to bed. I do not remember my dreams. When morning came, it brought me only one thought. I had to see this through. I had to understand, as far as possible, what was happening to me. I wish that I could believe that the experience had never hurt anybody, but I couldn't believe that, not in view of the terrific stress I'd been under. Before I underwent hypnosis, the great and agonizing issue was, did it happen or not? In other words, was I a victim or a madman? This question was literally chewing up my soul. It was intolerable. Despite what they had done to me, I did not hate the visitors. Because I knew their strength but not their motives, they frightened me. But I wished to be objective about them, even to the point of saying that they could very definitely be something from inside the mind, rather than from elsewhere in the universe. That they represented a real, living force seemed hard to dispute, but that this force might be essentially human in origin remained a definite possibility. Intellectually, I was unsure about what the visitors were, but my emotional self did not share that indecision. My emotional response was to real people, albeit non-human ones. I found myself thinking about the one I knew, turning her presence over and over in my mind. She had those amazing, electrifying eyes. They were featureless, in the sense that I could see neither pupil nor iris. There was a structure, perhaps of bones, faintly visible under the skin, and yet other parts of her body seemed almost like a sort of exoskeleton, like an insect would have. She was undeniably appealing to me. I bore toward her the same feelings of terror and fascination that I might toward someone I saw staring back at me from the depths of my unconscious. There was in her gaze an element that is so absolutely implacable that I had other feelings about her too. In her presence, I had no personal freedom at all. I could not speak, could not move as I wished. I wondered if it was the sheer impact of the experience that had fixed the image of this being so vividly in my mind, or had communion somehow come alive within me. How odd it was to find oneself suddenly under the very power that one so easily assumes over the animals. I had been captured like a wild animal on December the 26th, rendered helpless, and dragged out of my den into the night. Later, I thought to myself that they were taming me. Nobody has ever domesticated mankind. We are thus a wild species, as wild as the day we first went howling across the savannah. Perhaps the self-taming process of becoming a civilized species did not tame us to visitors, but only to ourselves. And then not very well, given our violent history. I reflected that the abduction to a round room had a long, long tradition in our culture. There were many such cases in fairy lore. Maybe the fairy was a real species, for example. Perhaps they now floated around in unidentified flying objects and wielded insight-producing wands because they have enjoyed their own technological revolution. Every time one decides either that this is psychological or real, one soon finds a theory that forcefully reopens the case in favor of the opposite notion. The most difficult part of my hypnotic material was this sudden regression to 1957. How could I explain that, even in the terms of visitors? To do so, I had to revise my whole understanding of what my life had been. I was deeply upset by that unexpected regression. But it was no more than a mild state of unease compared to how I felt after I had made a careful inventory of my past. The more I thought about it, the less able I was to accept the idea that this had been happening to me most of my life. When Bud Hopkins asked me if I remembered anything in the past, I did mention a few odd incidents. The memory of being taken from the train was not among them. If I accepted that this happened and that it was buried even more completely than the events of October the 4th, then what else must I accept? Inevitably, that my conscious life was nothing more than a disguise for another reality. As an experiment, I decided to return to my past and see just what I could come up with. Maybe nothing happened on that train. It seemed like a trick of the mind. Then I remembered that hypnosis session, and I thought to myself that the real trick of the mind might be happening now. My memories were so spontaneous, and it seemed so vividly real. I remember that a row of soldiers sleeping on those tables just as well as I remembered the drawing room of the train we were on. In July 1957, my father took my sister, who was then 13, and myself from San Antonio to Madison, Wisconsin, to see his sister and her family. A week later, we returned to San Antonio on the train. All my life, I've had a memory of that train seen from above, rushing through the night. Most of the windows are dark, which suggests that it is very late. There are thick pine woods, meaning that it must have been in Arkansas or farther north, for the Texas Eagle did not go through the pine forests of East Texas, but rather across the plains between Texarkana and Dallas, and then south over rolling, featureless country. For some reason, I had never thought twice about the strange image of the speeding train. Why should I have seen it from such a position? Can it be that I really was outside of it at some point? End of side 2.